Coast.
It actually helps me turn it on.
This is the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 in the Gulf Coast. UPRN talkradio.com.
Hi, I'm Brittany Ashley, your host of Breaking Norms, Building Dreams, your guide through this transformative journey in both business and life. This is your place crafted for dreamers, doers, or anyone who has been told they can't. Get ready as we challenge those narratives together. You're tuning in live to the United Public Radio Network, airing on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We are streaming on all the popular platforms every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me for a candid and thought-provoking conversation celebrating your unique journey because you are worth it.
When they are consuming your minds and your thoughts and your dreams, from the angels to the demons and to the mysteries unseen, there is no need to worry. There is no need for dread. It's just time to discuss the thing at the foot of the bed.
Welcome to Negotiating Happiness, the show that helps you find happiness, success, and balance in your work and life. I'm Adriana Fierster, your host for this journey into entrepreneurship and personal growth. We're broadcasting live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans as part of the United Public Radio Network. We explore the latest strategies, insights, and stories from successful entrepreneurs and experts. From managing stress to building a thriving business, we've got you covered.
Okay, man. I don't know about no witch hunts going on around here, but that's a little strange to me. Welcome to the Author's Quill, everybody. I'm Joe Mattelli. You see the handsome John Goodwin sitting there. I'm going to start calling John Goodwin Musk now, but anyway, we're going to move on from that. Any moans, groans, gripes, complaints, or bitches, please write to Michelle DeRoche. She loves to hear all of that wonderful stuff, especially if it's about John. She really likes it. I'm just warming y'all up. You can contact us here. There are several ways to reach us if you want to. I'm getting ready to add a few more venues onto Facebook where you'll be able to get us as well. And of course, if you're on my messenger, you can always write me on my messenger. Now that it is so nice that Facebook has allowed all three of my messengers and my two Instagram, all of them are on one messenger now. It is such a wonderful feature. Because now instead of having to jump back between 5 million messenger boxes and see who's saying what, y'all are all in the same box. I have noticed, though, I don't think the ones in like one Joe box and the other Joe box can actually talk to each other, but I can see what y'all are saying, and I can see how you're having conversations in the same box. Kind of weird, but kind of cool at the same time. So, again, welcome to the Author's Quill. I hope everyone is having a wonderful, beautiful, glorious day wherever you are on our big, beautiful blue planet. And for my Aussie friends, I've been talking to y'all a lot lately. I know, huh? So, doing Australia is always so much fun because you're time traveling. It's always fun. Anyway, who is this person we have down here?
Martin. Hey, John,
how are you doing, Martin? Are you hiding on us, man? You look like you was hiding down there at the bottom, just trying to hide out and stuff. I was watching you, man.
Yeah.
It's and welcome. I haven't talked to you in a little while. What you been up to?
I have been unfortunately busy recovering from a stroke in September.
Oh shit! Well, you're doing good. Everything's coming back good.
Everything's coming back good. I get more tired, and they say, "Yep, the brain has to heal," and I'm going to be tired.
It takes time. Yeah, it takes time.
I've
had a few friends come back,
so I can't have broken too much in my brain.
No, that's a good thing. I mean, look, I've had several friends have them over the years, and it's as we get older, we become more susceptible to them. But when you can recover, it's always such a good sign when you recover from them, especially recover, at a decent rate, because it suggests that it may not be anymore. So that's kind of a nice thing. It's but I'm glad to see you. You look good. I mean, you're looking good, man.
Thank you.
You might get John a run for his money. You could be Martin Musk now. I'm just saying.
I'm on my sloppy mode tonight because if I put on the good clothes, the cats will only tear them apart.
Or shed all over them, whichever comes worse. When I'm wearing white like this, my dogs are not allowed to get on me because there'll be little black and brown hairs all over the place. Even if they're not shedding, there'll still be little black and brown hairs all over the place. They're terrors. What can I say? So what are you working on? I mean, I know it takes a little time to get past all this, and nobody's going to rush you, but I know you're like most of the writers I know from Writers of the Future. Y'all just cannot sit still. It's like a disease or something. A good disease, mind you, but still, I mean, I have met so many people who's been associated with Writers of the Future. When I talk to them about being an author, they're like, "Oh, I'm always working on something." Even if it's doodling, man, they just can't sit still. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, that's one of the lessons they try to teach us there, that part of being a professional successful in this business is you have to keep going. You have to set yourself a pace, a steady pace. It doesn't have to be a break your neck pace, but you're not going to build a career by sitting still and resting on what you did last week.
And isn't that the truth?
It's totally the truth.
It's I don't I tell this to people all the time. You're only as famous as your last work, and the older that gets, the less famous you get. And it matters when it comes out to selling a book. I mean, if you're just writing, like when I first started doing radio, I was just doing it for the sake of doing radio to put information out. Today is a whole different world because I need to make money off of it. So you have to be thinking about what was your last good thing? What was your last great thing? I mean, in your case, what was my last good story? What sold? And am I going the same direction? Am I going to add on? Am I going to continue? Or am I going to go with something new? I don't even know how y'all do it. That shit would drive me crazy. Or not just be like, what the bleep?
But that's one of the lessons from the workshop for Writers of the Future, the 24-hour story. They give you a random item and a random book and a random person to talk to. And it's really just to spark your brain to say, I can build a story out of this. And after you've done that once and come out with a decent story, now you try it again. And pretty soon it reaches a point where you can do it. They won't all be gems. The late Mike Resnick, who used to be one of our judges, he told me one time, they can't all be your best work. But you learn that you can produce more or less on demand if you're going for, can I write this story? If you're trying to say, I have to write the beautiful, perfect story, that can sometimes lock you up because you're so worried about being perfect that you won't write anything. But if you write lots of stories, some of them are going to be perfect.
No, I figure, I know, I've met a lot of authors over the years. And like a friend of ours, Nick Redfern, he's a I don't know how he does it. I've asked him 100 times. I think he's got 170 books to his credit. He writes 9 to 5. He gets up in the morning, has his little breakfast, has a little coffee, gets his cup of coffee. Matter of fact, you know what he still uses? Still uses a typewriter to do his stories. Mm-hmm. And he says, I like to go in there. He said, it's my job. This is what I do for a living. I go in at 9, start writing away, or sit down and look at things or read stuff to get my brain in the right order. So I might stop for lunch. He said, but if I'm in the groove, he said, I'm not stopping. He said, I'll write to 5. He said, but even if I'm in a groove at 5 o'clock, I stop. I'm like, really? He said, I stop. I was like, I don't know many authors that just can stop like that and pick up again. Most of y'all are like, they ain't stopping. What do you think?
Now look at the math. Let's assume he's a slow typist like me, and he can do 20 words a minute, which we all know that typists, actual people who type for a living in professional settings, 20 words a minute is an absolute joke. Now let's assume that he's doing 50 minutes an hour, which is a pretty typical productivity. 20 words times 50 minutes is 1,000 words an hour, and he's doing that for 8 hours a day, and he's doing 8,000 words. And a novel, depending on his genre, a novel might start at 80,000. So that means that he's done a novel's worth of writing in 10 days, and he's kept that up for, I don't know how many, you said 170 books. Yeah. So for him, this is just a natural rhythm.
It is. When I ask him, he's like, it just works for me. He said, it just works. He says, it's always worked for me. And I asked him if he's going to retire. He said, nope, not as long as it works for me. He said, because I think he also likes the time of just getting in the room by himself and getting away from everybody. Everybody pretty much leaves him alone because he's married with people. You got, other people in his lives and he works from home, so I think he actually likes being able to get in there. It's like when I come to the studio, nobody bothers me when I'm in the studio. If that red light's on or that red sign's on, nobody bothers me when I'm here. Oh, except for like my dog, she'll come in. Like your cat, she'll be like, Dad, you got to pick me up now. I'm like, no, I'm live, sweetheart. I'm talking about the end of the world, the apocalypse. She don't give a shit. She wants on my lap. Denise, that is Martin L. Shoemaker. I'm sorry, I did not give him a proper intro. Well, I've talked to him many times. I skipped kind of coming in on the intro, but all of his information is in his bio listed on our website, so you can check it out right there. It's also going to be featured in the archive itself, so you can find it there as well. Carmen does a really good job of sending me all that, so it always looks good in the bio, so y'all can go by there and check it out. So how long have you been writing? 100 years, 200 years, 300 years?
I've been writing all my life, but I've been writing with a professional mindset. Literally, I can give you the precise date. July 4th, 2010 was the first time I sent out a story with a professional mindset. I'd sent them out in the past and I'd get a rejection and I'd give up and be kicking myself for the next however many years. July 4th, 2010, I sent out a story, and what came back, I sent it out again and I sent it out again. And I started finding mentors who would help me understand the business better. Yep. Surprisingly, almost all the mentors I found are judges for this contest. that were setting the habits that would eventually set me up to be a good competitor within this contest. So pretty much at this point, that would be not quite 15 years now. I've been writing with a professional mindset. And amazingly enough, a year after I started with a professional mindset, I started selling. The difference was I started taking it seriously to say, keep trying, keep writing, keep submitting, keep looking for advice, keep looking to improve, approach it as a career, not a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with hobbies.
No, but I'm
curious about your writing, Martin, because there's a guest. He's been on this show before, and he's also been on the podcast a couple of times. James Rassone. He writes near future military science fiction, and what he did, he first surveyed to see what was missing out there, because he was Clancy was when he died, there wasn't somebody that filled his shoes that he saw. So he said, okay, I'm going to go for filling those shoes. So he started writing that near future military science fiction, and he's done quite well. He's like 7 figures. I think maybe he'll hit that this year, but he was almost 7 figures last year with his publishing. And so based on that, then he went after that specific genre with his writing, because you're hard sci-fi. You're like space opera-ish type stuff. So did you go after like something like to fill a void of like a type of writing that you didn't find that you really wanted, that you loved and wanted to do? Or how'd you establish that that's what you do?
You kind of hit the nail on the head. Although as I get more involved, I find more people writing the stuff like I like. But I mean, I had seen so much of Ben Bova's work and other similar stuff that was very sort of Apollo program in its field, near future, near space, hard science fiction. And I wasn't seeing a lot of it out there. And then I love that stuff. And that's still, I mean, I do veer off from it, but that's what I write best. My winning story, Writers of the Future, was in that genre.
Right. Yeah, because you definitely have the science. I mean, that's what your email address gives it away. You know, you're a programmer. You're a serious geek as well as a nerd. You know, so you have both hands are firing away simultaneously with what you're able to do by combining, taking the best of both worlds. And it's also maybe you're a bit ahead of the curve too with what you were doing. So now other people are doing because they find that that's a successful genre to write in. But I was just curious in that, because there's that one essay that it comes up routinely from the winners when they've come back from their workshop week is one of their favorites that Elvin Hubbard wrote on how he narrowed down what he was writing based upon, how well it sold and how much he was paid for it. So he went, because he wrote all kinds of stuff, all the genres, but he just did the math on it and then came up with, what he did with science fiction at the end, that he did really well with that. But I was just curious on that, because yours, like when I think of you, you're so, and you may write all kinds of other stuff, but I just know you as that, what I just said. You're like very much, that's smart in my mind, but you write that near future hard science fiction.
And that's been my biggest success. The Last Dance, my second novel, first novel written, but second novel published. I mean, that was #1 on Amazon for science fiction ebooks for a month. And it's in that near future, near space, hard science fiction realm, which kind of bucks the trends, because I love that stuff, but it's usually not the top selling in the field overall. Fantasy just kicks the butt of science fiction.
Yeah, it does.
Kicks the butt of hard science fiction. So I kind of picked the niche that's the smallest of the field. But
yeah.
Love.
But you take a look at it, they say, I kind of like, turn a jaundiced eye towards someone saying, it's just a small niche. But you take a look at that. So the multi-billion-dollar industry that it is, so even if you only have like a small niche, that's still a section that's millions of dollars worth. And you can definitely get by on getting a big slice of a very small niche, that you're able to do with what you do there, and just keep it going with your next book, because that's what Razone did. I mean, he's got that one whole series that he did, which to me, that stuff is the scariest of anything, because it's all with actual technology, just maybe one or two pieces of it that don't exist. Like, we don't have batteries powerful enough to handle the mech suits or something like that, but the mech suits exist, or those type of rays and guns and bullets and all that type of stuff. And you're like, wow, and talking with James and also with Bill Fawcett, that technology all exists. They don't have extension cords long enough to keep them powered. But as soon as that's handled, then all of a sudden, mech wars are like no longer science fiction. They're like the real deal. So to me, that's like scary stuff, but that's what, you see a lot in the near future science fiction. There's a story coming out in volume 41, because I'm proofreading it right now with Emily, and we'll be done as soon as we finish this show today. We'll go back and finish the last few hours, and it'll be done. Then it goes to typesetting. But it's real scary. It's not a horror story. It's just like the potentiality of wow, that could actually happen, or the fear of what could happen is like something that science fiction can do. Cautionary tales, or check it out, guys. And so with what you do too, it's definitely stuff that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
No, near now sci-fi is always my favorite. I know it's not the biggest market, but it's by far my favorite. It's and there's a lot of good near now sci-fi movies and TV. I don't know about movies, but TV series. There's a couple good ones out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's near now. I guess near now sci-fi movies. I'd have to think about that for a little while.
Well, the big one, of course, recently was The Martian.
Yeah, well, actually, Martian. That's a good one too. The Martian's a good one to use as an example.
And it proves that so you can break out of the limits just because the genre doesn't necessarily be big by the mass. Individual stories can really take off.
Well, so there's a couple. What's that, Jesse? No, wait, there's a couple Martians. So there's the Martian where it's NASA and they're going to Mars, and they even have scientists actually talking from time to time. No, real scientists from time to time they'll do a cut, but it's actually a TV show. It's a two-season TV show. I forgot where it's at now, but that's pretty good. And then there's what's his name, the Martian. I can't think of his name now. Real famous actor. That one's also pretty good. There's a couple of them, come to think about it, that are actually decent, but they all have to deal with Mars, which I guess is going to be a near now science for us.
Yeah.
Elon said 2050 there'll be a full blown 2 million person colony living there. So
I hope so. I'm writing stories there.
Yes, good. Somebody asked me the other day, he said, would you go? I said, well, yeah. I said, for old people, Mars is a godsend. He said, what do you mean? I said, you got arthritis. You want to live on Mars. The gravity is way less. Your heart works way better. I said, it doesn't have to work as hard to pump. I said, Mars will probably add 20 to 30 years to people's lives when they're old. I said, down here, the gravity is killing us. I said, but on Mars, it wouldn't. It'll actually be the other way. I said, but that's if you're born here and you live there. Being born there, it might be different. I said, but being born here and living there, there's actually some big benefits for humans. Also, some bad ones as far as bone degradation, but that's only if you plan on coming back to Earth. It doesn't really matter if you plan on staying there. Oh man, I'm a big geek when it comes to Mars. It's one of my favorite places. I guess because I know eventually we're going to be living there. Eventually. What's that, Glinda? I don't know. I think he told you what his favorite genre was a few minutes ago. What you weren't here? Okay, Martin, what is your favorite genre to write in? I'm pretty sure we discussed this, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you again.
Pretty much near future, near space, hard science fiction, people living and working and building in the future there.
Just means he's a geek like me. That's all. It's some of us just like to geek out. What are you talking
about? And his work too is like he's a programmer. So that's your
what else? Yeah. I mean,
he's a computer programmer. So he's like I said, he's a geek and a nerd.
Why are you listing TV shows? Oh, Babylon 5 would be considered near now sci-fi. Maybe a little bit further than near now, but close to near now. How's that?
And Silo's also a little bit further than near future, but that's also another one too. Post-apocalypse.
Now, you're talking about from The Expanse. Yeah, that's definitely near now. That's within the next 100 years. Altered Carbon, I don't know. It could be, it not be. That's a flip a coin near now. It's a flip a coin, meaning that the technology, we are working on technologies like that to store human consciousness, but are we anywhere close to actually doing it on that level? I don't know. So like I said, we'll flip a coin, and we don't have that kind of space travel yet either. So we'll have to flip a coin on that one. Well, somebody might design a drive in the next 10 or 20 years that might do something like that, but right now, not so much.
Yeah, I'm right now in the middle of reading Mickey 7 because I'll be having Edward Ashton, who's the author, on as a guest in a little bit, and that's further future. But that's where the upload they've got a guy on these missions going to other Goldilocks planets throughout this, as part of the diaspora of humanity, and so they got one person on every one of these missions on the ship, which is an expendable, and so they've totally copied all of his body, his brain and everything, so that, anytime there's something where they need to check, okay, how's the atmosphere? Okay, send the expendable out there, and you wait to see what happens to them. If they die, then okay, good, you just put a new one out there. So this guy here, this is Mickey 7, and then there was a mistake where the guy left him for dead, but he didn't die, so they made a Mickey 8. So now you've got Mickey 7 and Mickey 8 trying to exists on this small part that's habitated, or that has the people that came, except you're not supposed to have more than one. So if you have more than one, then it's automatic death sentence type thing. So they're trying to keep it, instead of sending one, no, why should me? Well, you should go. No, you should go, being killed. And so now I'm in the middle of it. They just got found out now. I'm like halfway through it. So I say, okay, now what's going to happen? But anyway, it's being made into a movie, so that's why I'm interested in interviewing him.
Stephanie, what series? Oh, 1999. 1999 would have been considered near now. 1999 was I don't know how to describe 1999. It had its pluses, and it had some really good pluses and some really big drawbacks. It's a tough one. So I would list 1999 as a cult thing and enjoy it for what it is what I would tell you. It's kind of like Discovery. Enjoy it for what it is. Yes, it's sci-fi. It's like Battlestar Galactica, the old one, which was very campy. Enjoy it for what it is. The new one was just a little too dramatic for me, I guess. Because being in the military and being special forces, I learned something early on. I don't care how desperate something is, how bad something is, how you're about to get your whole self blown away. Somebody's going to crack a joke. And that's why sci-fi is so good, because sci-fi realizes that end of the world's happening, everybody's getting shot, people dying all around you. Some guy looks over and cracks a joke at you, because that's real life. That's what's going to happen. It's like whistling in the dark to keep yourself sane. That's what it is. It's actually something they teach in the military, by the way. Yes, it's kind of strange. What other one?
So what are you working on now, Martin?
I am in the middle of. I cannot say my shorthand for it because we're being recorded. So I will say the longhand version of it. A police procedural investigative series set on Mars.
Well, this could be interesting.
It's if you take my third novel, my second Mars novel, my third novel, The Last Campaign, is police investigations on Mars. This is the investigative team from that in shorter stories. So, because if you look at any of these police procedural shows that I'm not going to name that you see on TV all day now,
and there's a lot of them,
and they have their fans, and they are mostly pretty good. But an hour-long episode is a short story. It's a novelette to a novella. It's not a novel, and it's episodic. And over time, it becomes as much about the team as about the crimes. Because the crime goes from week to week to week, and you're done. But the team is what you're getting to know, and how they work and how they work together and what their problems and struggles are and so on. So I've got 2 episodes of that done, and I'm in the middle of a third, and I want to put these out as novellas, which, again, short, quick reads for your readers. If you think in page count, because that's how readers think. We writers think in words. In page count, a novella is probably something like 75 to 100 pages, depending on layout.
Short story, yeah.
And that's about the equivalent of an hour of TV in terms of content.
Yeah, for someone like John and my wife, that's like a mini story. They read at warp speed and stuff. Oh no, Karen, no, I'm serious. Oh no. Because when you read all the time, you learn how to read. See, I was taught speed reading, which is different. Speed reading, you're cheating. The way they read, they're actually reading, and they're still seeing the words that I would actually leave out in something. It's just they've learned how to read at a faster pace and a smoother rate. No speed
well, one
reading
thing that's really good on reading, just as a point, because I use in here, I use the sometimes I listen to Audible, but Kindle. What's really nice about Kindle is when you get your story, if you have a word that you're like, oh, what's that word? So I'm reading, able to stimulate individual neurons. So you just highlight it, and then it pulls up the definition, and you can get the definition, go right back to it. So one thing that I'm very keen on is looking at the words you don't understand. Because if you've ever read a story or even read a paragraph or read a page and go back like, what did I just read? It's because there's words that you don't understand that causes you to not remember. So by looking at the words, I can get through the book. And on some books, it's slow because there's so much terminology. Like if I read a Martin book, I'm going to be looking up a lot of words. But then by the time I get to the end of the book, I know what I read. I can remember it. And then the next book of his, I can read a lot faster. And it's that because since I'm reading basically a book a week right now, I'm in the middle of, I think, 3 books.
So now I got to go back and probe Martin here.
Yeah.
So we're talking a crime show on Mars, kind of, sort of. Now, is this going to be? Now, if I'm getting too questioning, you say something, okay?
Columbo on Mars.
So this is going to be set like in the Wild West days of Mars when it first starts. Is this going to be after the colony's been established? Or is it going to be now not a colony but a city? I'm curious because all that makes a difference in the way it plays out, especially in my head.
Well, The Last Campaign, which is my second Mars book, is set in Maxwell City, which is a city of about 50,000 people.
So we're talking cities, okay?
Yeah, and that's the largest city on Mars at that point. It's the first city settled. But 50,000 is a It's not huge, but it's big enough that, I mean, if you were to have a city of 5,000 and you had a murder every episode, people are going to start noticing that everybody's bumping off. And 500, it's like, but a city of 50,000 is big enough to hide a lot of crime. It's big enough to have places to hide things.
Mm-hmm.
It's big enough to have subcultures and everything. So, what was the city? Now I can't remember. There's a city I was looking at as an example recently to say, yeah, okay, so that's a 50,000 person city, and I go to their crime reports. I was like, yeah, there's some crime there, but it's hard on Earth because you take your average 50,000 person city, and it is right next to another 30,000 person city, and so on. That you're really part of a big metro.
Or you're like one of the little cities next to the Dallas-Fort Worth area where there's 500 million people living at, or 500,000.
And from my distance, it's really all just Dallas. But from their distance, it's individual jurisdictions.
That's the truth of it too. It's but see, on Mars, that would be a city. That would be like a big city here. It'd be a metropolis for Mars because it would be the first large established city. So it would be where everybody would be coming to, things that you would want would probably be there. So whatever colonies or settlements or other smaller cities would be. So it's not just the 50,000, but it would be all the coming and going along with it. So that would probably add to that.
Yeah.
By quite a bit. What's that, Janine? I'm a geek. I can't help myself. All that stuff makes a difference to me when I'm reading something. Yeah, I said this does. Matter of fact, there was just a episode of Doctor Who where they were on Mars. Mm-hmm. They were really good about paying attention to detail. Well, Mars is like I said earlier. Mars offers some things for older people that no one ever talks about on Earth for some reason. Just read up on the science for yourself. There's actually real science on what happens to the human body when it's there, especially if you're over the age of 50 or older. Yes, it really, truly does add to your life. And it's more than that. You know how you have to run up and down stairs here on Earth? You don't have to do that up there. You can just push yourself or just jump. A half a jump will get you up a flight. Yeah. No, they do have gravity there. Whoever wrote that, it's 1/6. No, it's more than that. It's 1/3 of Earth's.
40%.
Yeah, so it's a little effort on the jump, but still, it's not like you here where you jump and you 2 feet off the ground or something. Oh yeah, if you're an athlete, you might jump 5 feet off the ground. Yes. So I mean, Mars to me is just a fascinating place because I mean, you can kind of lose yourself in Mars. I mean, you can take some Earth's bad and good habits and put it on Mars, but I noticed being that it's Mars, you can kind of develop some of your own stuff, maybe your own religion or your own little subcultures, things like that have to be something interesting to play with. Because I mean, a subculture on Mars would probably be nothing like one on Earth. It would probably have a whole different meaning or believing in some system that Earthlings would look at like, what are you, stupid? Are you smoking crack on Mars? It's just, I think it's fascinating because I think Mars is going to be a fascinating place. And I think there's going to be a lot more to Mars that once we get there than we realize, but we'll see what happens. We'll see it in our lifetime. I mean, I don't know how big a colonies we'll see in our lifetime, but we'll definitely see a colony in our lifetime. It's unless Elon croaks over, he's going to Mars. He's going to the moon first, but he's going to Mars. He can't help himself. I didn't realize, I was listening to him speak the other day. He reads like a maniac. So I wasn't sure if he was that kind of geek that just listened to stuff or he just got it in his head and then he had somebody check it out. But no, he actually does read quite a lot. He said sometimes, he'll have like a board meeting coming up or something, and they'll think that he's reading, like getting ready for the board reading. He'll be reading a novel of some sort. He never says what kind he reads, though, I noticed. And if you ask him about aliens, he said, yeah, that probably is out in space, but there's none around here anywhere. And every time he says that, I'm thinking, Elon, you're probably a freaking alien. I mean, come on, you're doing by yourself what 5 other government space agencies can't do. I'm thinking, yeah, you might be an alien too. I don't know. So how long you got before 6 months, a year, 5 weeks, before you're thinking about publishing it?
I have the first 2 episodes. Well, the first one I think is really done. The second one is done, and I've got it out with my first readers to see if they think it's ready to go. The third one, I was probably halfway through in September when all of a sudden I woke up one morning and I couldn't stand up straight. And no matter how hard I tried, I had no balance on my left side. And then I spent 3 weeks in the hospital with my stroke. So the third one's been a little slowed down. I want to get the first 5 done before I put them out, because the first 5, each of them is its own episode, but I think the first 5 are going to tell a longer story when you put them all together.
Well, that's nice, because I mean, especially if you read through the first book and you like it, and then you book 2, you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. You hit book 3 and you think, oh, because usually by the time you hit book 3, it's a trilogy, you're probably done, you're moving on. So now people actually have something to look forward to reading. For me, it's hard because I don't have time to read anymore. I have to listen to stuff. But I was telling John before, there's a couple of programs on my computer that if I really like something, like if I read through a book, like the first part of it, and I really like it, I will give it and put it on my thing so my computer can get it. Nowadays with AI, the computer can actually find it online, and if it can't, then I have to put it through the scanner. But if it does, it'll find it online. It'll ask me what voice I want for it. It used to only be Microsoft Sam or Microsoft Samantha, which sucked. But actually now they have pretty good voices that you can listen to. And
Sultry Sadie, that's your favorite?
No, I don't know who I'm listening to right now. Actually, now I'm listening to some guy. He sounds like Edward or Bernard Jones or whatever his name is. It's got this deep voice. Like, oh, you're doing it. I'm like, okay. I need something that keeps my attention when I'm driving and stuff, because too many other flighty things going on. People calling, people irritating me, shit, text messages going off. So I want to actually be able to enjoy something when I'm listening to it. And it's a shame because, the bad part is sometimes I'll pull up something on my computer and I'll start reading it. But by the time I'm, say, I don't know, 10, 15 pages in, I've already got like 50 messages popping up, people bugging me. Because somehow, even when I don't log in, people send the kind of know when I'm online. It's irritating. And y'all heard me, people. It's irritating,
Yeah. How often are you not online?
Well,
how often are you not irritated?
Yeah, well, when I'm at my day job, I'm not online. So if 8 to 5, I'm not online, but because I'm doing contracting or something along those lines. But after that, I'm online a lot. I try not to spend as much time in here, because it gets. I'm married, so I try to not, it's a limited, but it's hard to do, and I try not to be in the office at any times on Sundays. But like right now, we've been having weird issues with weird stuff, so yeah, you have to do what you got to do. So books, so you're 3 books in. So what is this? 2024. So mid 2025. Because I'm curious. Any Mars books are fascinating to me, and I do know that TV people and movie people really like to do Mars stuff, especially. I mean, matter of fact, they're gonna redo, what is it? Not Bradbury. What was his name? They did the Martian Chronicles. They're going to redo the Martian Chronicles. They said they're going to bring them up to date, whatever that means. I'm not sure. The Martian Chronicles was interesting in the fact that it had some good stuff in it. It also had some really goofy stuff in it. I don't know how you would modernize that in today's world, though. You'd have to redo the whole movie. I mean,
Bradbury didn't like the TV miniseries. And I'm not Bradbury, so I can't say I kind of enjoyed it. But
I enjoyed it.
Problem that what we knew about science by the time it aired was so much advanced of what we knew when he wrote it. And now, 50 years later, what we know about science, you really have to just accept that you're telling fantasy if you're going to tell those stories.
Well, yeah, because they're walking around on Mars and drinking water and breathing air. It's a little rough. Oh man! Maybe they could say they had some magic terraforming thing going on or something, or they could do what the guy said. One of the goals of Mars is not to immediately terraform it, but to raise the pressure on Mars so we don't have to wear suits. All we have to wear is breathing apparatus. That's not that hard to do. Getting it to where we can breathe, that's actually work. But getting it to where the pressure raises, that's not all that hard of a.
Well, fortunately, you can figure that one out. We just need to do that.
Yeah, well, this is pretty easy. All they want to do is drop off a couple of machines. But I actually want to build them on Mars. All they do is drive around scooping up dirt, and they just burn the dirt. The dirt's just pumping carbon into the atmosphere, which of course thickens the atmosphere to the point where you don't have to wear suits anymore. They just want to bring the pressure stable so humans can. It'll be a lot easier for us to work with if we don't have to wear spacesuits doing everything. And it's got to be more than just inside. And then somebody's got to learn how to build either some type of centrifuge in space or on Mars that keeps a 1G environment, because without it, you're not going to be able to have kids on Mars. So unless you want some weird, God knows what they're going to look like kids. I mean, I have no idea what to expect from that one. It's going to be definitely different. Get your ass to Mars. Was that near now? I guess that could have been considered. No, maybe. I don't know. Near now, that's a little far for near now. What was the name of that? Something Return. What the hell was the name of that movie? Get your ass to Mars. I know which one you're talking about. I can't just think of the name of it right now. But Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yes, I remember it. It was fun to watch. Most of those kind of movies are just fun to watch. You just can't take them for. It's like the Chronicles. You can't take them for anything more than just fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun stuff. I mean, that too, when Bradbury Hubbard wrote, Evan Hubbard wrote a book also called The Dangerous Dimension, which they went to Mars, and Edgar Rice Burroughs going to Mars. It was, it was a lot different than, you saw the rivers of Mars. So you had rivers, they were there,
Yeah, rivers of Mars. Even in John Carpenter's, which I like I like the last version of John Carpenter's Mars, but they had rivers there, they had canals, and that's all because your boy he thought he found canals through his telescope, which they found out later were lines. That's on his telescope, but still, I mean, 100 years they thought there was canals on Mars? I shouldn't be laughing. Shame on you, Joe. Bad joke.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like the technology sets, and when we go there, we're going to find that maybe when they do the various more mapping stuff, that they'll find that the rivers that however long ago they existed, now they're it's all under the surface, and these huge, like you've got what's the one with Dune? What's that one planet what's the one there that Arrakis?
Yeah.
All the water's underground there. It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, there's definitely water on Mars. We've been saying that since I've been hosting Wake Up USA 30 years ago, but there's no doubt about it. I told them a long time ago, I said, you're going to find water on Mars. You're going to find life on Mars. And now, I'm not talking about us, but you're going to find life on Mars of some kind. And I'm not talking about microbiological life. Damn, my brain is going. I'm talking about life, like plants, probably some small animals. There's no doubt about that. All you have to do is watch the ice cap recede every year. And when it recedes, you see this black bloom that starts in a small area and then it's bigger than the ice cap. And then when the ice cap starts to grow, it recedes. So it's some type of vegetation growing there. And it's probably not the only place. And if there's vegetation in atmosphere, there's in water, something liquid, there's life of some kind. There's probably some little rodent rats eating on it or something. Don, a lot of people say we may have contaminated Mars and brought something on Viking. Because Viking was the first one to find oxygen, yes. They found oxygen many times. They find oxygen and carbon plumes. So both of those are generally made by biological function of some sort. Methane and stuff like that are produced by things rotting and dying. You'll see it. So they found that on many things, which suggests there's something alive that's now dying. Oxygen is usually produced by something alive. It's not exclusively, but most of the time. And since they find these plumes in different times of the year, in different seasons, because Mars has seasons, they're thinking that there's something alive there. Probably underground, living in a fissure somewhere. There's probably a little canyon down there. It's still got its whole system going on. Well, we'll know when we go there. Yes, we'll find out. I would imagine in this solar system, you will find life on a half a dozen, maybe a dozen places. People forget Saturn's got 200, just like over 300 moons between Saturn and Jupiter, and at least a dozen of them could probably support some type of life. So, and then as Pluto seems to have not been what we thought it was. I don't know. So, solar system is going to be an interesting place over the next 100 years. It's going to be really interesting.
Is Pluto a planet again, or is it still like
no, it's still
an asteroid or whatever?
You know why? Because there's actually things in the Oort cloud that are bigger than Pluto that are not going to be planets. They're still going to be planetoids. And actually, it's actually smaller than several of Jupiter and Saturn's moons. So they just kind of, but it's got its own moon. I figure if it had its own moon, it should be a planet. right? If you got your own moon, you should be a planet. I don't think they think. I think they actually say they think it's Uranus or Neptune's stray moon is what they really want to call it because of the way it orbits like this. Yeah, and then like Venus rotates the wrong direction. The solar system got some interesting stuff. We'll find out. Martin should have stuff to write about for the next 500 years.
So, Martin, how do you research your books?
Part of it is just I'm keeping up with this stuff all the time. Part of it is just really good web searching. Never, ever, ever make a business or personal decision based on what you find in Wikipedia. But Wikipedia is a good starting point. Wikipedia gives you a really good overview and links to other sources. And for fiction, I don't have to be 100% precise. I have to have cool ideas. Wikipedia is fine with that. I have very often run into something where Wikipedia was enough clarification. My winning story for Writers of the Future, Unrefined, started out with a reactor, a fusion reactor exploding, and something in the back of my head, and this is my research secret that I wish I could explain it, but there's something in the back of my head sometimes that says, wait. And it said, wait, no, that sounds wrong. And I don't know why. And so I jumped to Wikipedia and start reading everything we know about fusion reactors and find that for all intents and purposes, you will never see a fusion reactor blow up for the simple reason that it's so darn hard to create fusion in the first place that before it could ever run out of control and blow up, it would tear itself apart. And as John knows from the story, tearing itself apart was really good tension and really good tragedy and danger in the story by itself. I simply took out the explosion part and instead said, here's a massive, expensive, dangerous reactor that's going to tear itself to ribbons while the character is trapped there. So Wikipedia gave me everything I needed for that, as after the little voice in the back of my head said, you can't blow this up. And I'm like, why not? Somewhere I must have heard that information before. And so my instinct said, go learn. And that's really what it comes down to, is go learn. In the video you share with the winners at the workshop on Mr. Hubbard on research.
Yeah.
I have an advantage he did not have. I have the internet. But he was all about go out and travel and go places and find things and do things and learn things so that you can have that whole pile of knowledge to build on. And he came up with great stories out of that. I'm too lazy and too busy and too tied to my work to go out and travel off to the Alaska to learn how things happen there. But I've got the internet and he didn't. So I can get some pretty good, not firsthand like he got, but I can get some pretty good information there through the internet.
Yeah. So that's how you do it, how your research there. How much do you have speculative fiction? So how much of your science is speculative versus actuality of science?
Most of the time, it is as actual as I can make it, with a couple of exceptions. If I'm telling a story set in other star systems, I have to just say, yes, there's faster than light. And I don't believe we're going to see that anytime soon, but you can't tell that kind of story otherwise. In a similar fashion, I try really hard to tell my travel times within my stories within the solar system with current rocketry, current technologies. Try to tell them at realistic speeds, except that you can't. You really can't. I mean, the travel time from Earth to Mars in a round trip is 26 months, and I make that work. But man, you start going farther than that, and you've got to invent some sort of fast drive that we really don't have yet. We can hypothesize, but we really don't have anything like it yet, because getting around the whole solar system, you're going to have stories that are based on, okay, the family is leaving for Jupiter now, and we'll be there sometime in 4.5 to 5 years, and then we'll start doing whatever we went there for. And if you're going to stick to that, and there's story potential there, but if you're going to stick to that, it changes the whole society and the whole structure, because it really is. You're going to have to basically take your family or be a loner who doesn't need family to make a 4 and a 5 year trip. You're like back in the Old West. When you left the East Coast to travel out to California, you were going. You were not coming back. Yes, some people did. For the most part, you were going on a long trip, and you might not make it. Some of you might die along the way. And once you were there, you were in a whole new place, which again is a sort of story that I like and I may tell at some point. But it's a little hard to do stories about individual characters with individual lives who go back and forth between things and so on. The timing of getting across the solar system, I have to assume much better rocketry than anything we still can conceive of. Our contest judge, late judge now, Jerry Purnell, wrote some essays collected in A Step Farther Out, where he talks about the realities of rocket travel and what is what it's possible and what's not. And you run into the point where having these ships be as fast as they have to be for some of these stories, they would be so fast that they would melt any drive you can possibly imagine. Because essentially the faster you go, the hotter it has to be. And to go as fast as they're talking about to carry out these stories, you've got something hotter than the heart of the sun. And if it's hotter than the heart of the sun, your rocket isn't going to survive your own drive. So we have to sometimes speculate on some sort of fancy new form of travel.
Yeah, that's what was done like with the Skylark series.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was in the garage and discovered this other form of transportation that was then able to solve that problem of FTL, faster than light travel. But one thing I'm just curious, talking to you now as a hard science fiction writer, the problem with science over the centuries has been the science right now is always the ultimate, you know, and so like, no, you know, before you had religion and science, you know, opposing each other, but then it went on past that. And so science would always say, okay, here we are. This is now, we've reached the ultimate of what we can know, until someone else reaches the next one. And we've been pegged at, you know, the Einstein's equation saying that you can't go faster than the speed of light. Although there are now other examples where things do go faster than the speed of light. That how much, you know, because I'm formulating the question, I'm asking it because when I talk to a lot of our speakers over the years with Rise to the Future, astronauts, engineers, who have been our keynote speakers, they were inspired by science fiction. I wonder if I can do that. How can we do that? How much have you observed or do you think is going on in the world of science that these things are trying to be, these immutable laws are being challenged and really worked on to be able to push the borders to the next level?
There's definitely efforts. NASA has their, I think it's called an advanced propulsion program that's investigating wild schemes that come along. And so there's an effort. I don't know how much there is beyond just small labs here and there. We don't probably have time to get into the whole funding of research thing because that's a multi-hours debate. But essentially, right now, there's zero profit in that. And then when somebody does it, the very next day, somebody will find the profit in it. But to try to tell research funders today that this is a practical use of money, you've got to have somebody who's willing to spend the money with no hope of return. Because if you don't, then it won't happen. But if you do, with no hope of return, you might still get return. So NASA's got some people investigating this. You get small private groups investing in this. And maybe one of them will come through, but I don't predict that. I can't. That's the sort of a jump that's beyond my ability to predict. When it happens, it will surprise us.
Right. Because I know that John Thompson, he just retired last year as a 3-star Air Force general, and he was one of the ones that helped create Space Force. And one of the things that he did that changed what they were doing was, before it was always working with your main 2 or 3 organizations that was building the spaceships, building everything, which proved absolutely worthless as a solution, and putting us way behind Russia and China in space exploration, especially building up the armaments in space. So he started going to these other startups who were working on new technologies, new ways of doing things that weren't confined to what they're having to do. And they were very much invested into the technology they were trying to research. And he was doing that to be able to change stuff. And that's what, Elon did too. He didn't do conventional. So his stuff that came out was, it's like, where's that coming from? And everybody's cheering. It's great. Like the chopsticks, that type of thing there, and landing on a deck and reusing these things, which was totally not per any planning that NASA or JPL had. So that took from an outside thing there. So I'm just curious on that, how much that comes into play, and if that is part of how you tie into your storytelling as well.
I have certainly elements of that I see, that multiple paths have multiple chances. And so certainly I foresee that having centralized control, centralized control is always subject to blind spots. So he's got a good approach there of decentralize, get multiple things in. It's the old angel investor program. Angel investors, their theory is, I'm going to invest in 10 companies. 7 of them are going to bomb miserably and go bankrupt and lose every penny I invested. 2 of them are going to do okay and I'll get my money back. And 1 of them will take off like nobody could have ever predicted, and I'll get rich. And nobody can tell you which is the 1 out of the 10. You do your best, but nobody can tell you which is the 1 out of 10.
Right. Got it. Yeah, I know that when it's interesting, because like when Hubbard wrote, there was a series in the Pulp Fiction, the Golden Age of science fiction days, called Conquest of Space. And there, what he predicted was that it was privatization of spaceflight that actually made it possible. He said it wasn't, the governments were so full of restrictions and stops and barriers and laws and rules that you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this.
I've been preaching privatized space flight since 35 years. John, do you get John's email? The one Carmen sent me, for some reason, it's cut out the email. It's cut off.
For John
right
Haas,
where, right where it would be. No, really, I've been preaching privatized industry for a long time, because I already knew if you watch anything in our country that goes private, it always works better. It's like the first calculator was $5,000 in the size of my desk. Today it's $5 in the size of my credit card, and it don't have to have batteries, so your damn house lights will run it. It's a major change in just a few decades. I mean, it shows how far we can move things, and we can have overnight discoveries, and we've done it in the past. Fast and Light, I don't know. Now there's a couple of new drives out. So the first scheduled flight to Mars should be less than 7 months going that way. They're saying by the 5th one, it should be less than 3. So I know one of them's a new plasma drive they're testing. They just shot it out towards the end of the solar system. There's a couple other things they're testing that they want to try. They're still trying to capture antimatter and keep it for more than 0.81 milliseconds. I'm sorry, 0.81 milliseconds. I apologize. I was giving it too much time there. No, Gene, I'm not serious. Not even close to a second. Not even a 1/10 of a second yet have they been able to maintain it. They can get it. Oh yeah, I don't know how they get it, but I've seen it more than one time. It's like teleportation. 3 countries on 11 different times now have teleported nothing but, data, and it's not even data. It's what do they call it? Biological something or another. Yeah. Okay. When we're talking about this, we're talking like I forgot the one from Britain, which was only 1,500 yards. What was it? It was like 0.1 gram or something. It was whatever it was ridiculous. But they did do it. And then they did one in Australia. It's a little better and a little bigger. They're nowhere near teleporting anything, food or merchandise yet. But give them 50 years. They'll be teleporting your stuff to your house. You won't even need drones anymore. Everybody have a little telepad. No, I don't know about people. People seems to be a little bit more complicated. Maybe not. Maybe a box and maybe a person will end up being the same thing. I don't know. I'm not that kind of scientist. I do have a bachelor's in science, but not that kind of science. Advanced avionics, advanced electronics, any of that geeky stuff, yes, but none of that.
I just emailed them the link.
Oh, did you? Good, thank you.
Yeah.
So see, man, Martin, they're gonna be offering these free trips in about 10 years to Mars, man. What did Josh Kellos talk about it the other day? Is one of Elon's people. Of course, there'll be one-way trips. I don't think there'll be round trips. But Elon said a one-way thing is stupid. He said, since we're going to have ships going and coming from Mars, it's going to be dumb to send an empty ship back. So send it with either stuff we made on Mars, stuff we've got from the asteroid belt, or people who want to go home. He said, I don't see why it has to be a one-way trip. We'll see. We'll see how much radiation you're going to get when you get there. We still haven't really, because the longer it takes, the more you're exposed. And I know you know that. So, no, people, if we take a trip to Mars at 14 months or 12 months, depending on what year it is, because some years it's quite a bit closer to us, that's a lot of exposure to radiation. That's a lot of food you got to carry, a lot of fuel you got to carry, a lot of water you got to carry, a lot of stuff you got to, even though a lot of the water and power is going to be, air is going to be recycled. Not all of it can be. And you're still going to have food. I would say put some bitches to sleep if you're going to stick them out in space for 13 months. No, you can do it. No, it's not. It's all doable science. I'm sure Martin's written about it. It's all doable science. It's not, let me put it this way. It's not outside of our current scientific levels. How's that? Does that make y'all feel better? But it's outside of our money wise. Who wants to spend that kind of money to go to Mars other than Elon? And since they're forecasting he'll be worth $1 trillion in less than a decade, he'll have the money to do it. You don't even need the government to do it. I know who would have ever thought one individual would be able to colonize Mars when our freaking governments can't even do it. That's just disgusting. Y'all don't get me started. I'm not allowed to curse on the show, so don't get me started.
I think it's 100% explicable. The people in charge, and I'm not pointing any fingers, the people in charge of our United States space program change persons completely somewhere between every 2 to 4 to 6 years.
Oh, yep. Oh, yeah.
And they have different priorities. And any system that has turnover at that rate cannot commit to things that are 20-year plans.
Cheaper, faster, better. I remember that disaster.
I think the only reason this I'll be blunt. I think the only reason we actually succeeded in our commitment to Apollo is because Kennedy died and no one wanted to let down his legacy. Otherwise, we have a long history of every 2 to 4 years, our priorities in space change. Because
I agree with Holden.
Yeah, again, that goes back to your ROI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think Elon, as long as he is still there, will have the same priority. Bezos, his priority will stay the same. An owned organization has a longer time view.
Yeah.
Plus, it's been interesting because of who getting in office. I'm not allowed to say his name on a show because if I do, I get emails, both good and bad. But I get a lot of emails. But because of the trio I was listening to the other day, so Mark was talking about, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Mark Zuckerberg. He was talking about, along with Jeff Bezos, about maybe combining forces with Elon, and that way they could quadruple the speed of the space program's growth. Well, between the three of them, they're worth almost $1 trillion, and Bezos is well into his own space programs already. So they're not near as sophisticated as Elon's, but still, they're nothing to sneeze at. They're better than Boeing's. Poor Boeing's. You want to go save them astronaut from Boeing. That was so embarrassing.
They're just greedy sons of bitches.
Oh, they've gotten bad now. Though. I mean, first they got people trapped in space. They got planes falling out of the sky. I don't know what's going on with Boeing. They went from such a good company to I don't know what happened to them. I don't want to be flying a Boeing spaceship to Mars. Is all I'm telling you. People, I just don't want to try that one.
Don't worry, nobody else does either.
What is that, Henry? Actually, Elon's. No, you mean the one that blew up yesterday? No, that's not his first one. The spaceships. I think the starships. They 7 or 8 of them now. Well, he said in the beginning they were going to blow up, and they blew up a lot of Falcon 9s in the beginning too.
Yeah.
People forgot it was not just Elon's success wasn't just overnight. He blew up a lot of rockets before he learned how to land them and catch them. So not only he can land them and catch them, and here we are as Americans and as Russians and as Chinese, and they still can't do it. And he's been doing it for what, almost a decade now. It's sad, man.
I listened to his bio a couple months ago, and it was fascinating when on his first one where he had enough money to pay for 3 launches. The first 2 failed, and the last one, he put all chips were in. You know, that's his. He talks about also his philosophy of life too. Just all chips are in, and he just did that, and it was like if that didn't go, it was a bust. You know, he was like he was done for, and it succeeded, and then that gave enough to like, okay, good, now I can go on to the next level. But he said this happened multiple times. You know, where if it didn't go, his next thing he'd try, fail.
That's the only reason he opened it for private investments was because of that in the end. Oh no, John! Last I heard, he still does not publicly trade. He's funny. I don't think he wants too many fingers in the cookie jar. There's too many secrets that need to be kept. And you have to remember, a lot of these upstart companies you see that are going to be doing like small lifts and medium to small lifts used to work for Elon. These are people that were captains with him that are now starting their own companies. And Elon's not against it, by the way. He's actually happy for him. So they're sending him technology, they're swapping technologies. They've created this thing. I don't even know what you'd call it. That if America, China, and Russia would have did this just 50 years ago, we'd not only be on Mars, we'd be all over the damn solar system.
Yeah.
But no, we'd rather spend, $1 trillion a year on killing people than help. I'm sorry. I promise I would not get on those kind of rants. I apologize. Oh, it aggravates me some days though.
No,
anyway, John,
spend the money on DEI. That's what's important.
Yes, that's right. Spend that money on DEI. I want a job because I'm a thing. I identify as a cat, no, as a dog. I don't want to hate on cats. Yes, no, I identify as a rabbit. Yeah, there we go. Stop shutting up. I always start getting emails at the who's it. John, what's down there? We can't get you, man. It's saying you need to connect your mic or your camera or both. You're just in zombie land down there in the black box.
Martin, have you met John Haas before?
Yes, I have.
Oh, good. Yeah, while you're your super science stuff, he's super horror. So
John was volume 35.
Yeah.
He was the Ripper Cthulhu.
Exactly. So while
okay,
you're
John, Martin,
John, horror of things blowing up, he's near future of like Cthulhu coming in and near past Cthulhu destroying England. What was it? 1880 or something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, John, welcome back.
Hey, John.
Yes, welcome back.
You can all hear me.
Yes, we got you, ladies and gentlemen. John Haas.
You can buy me, but that would be good.
Okay.
On your mic.
I didn't realize I had to turn everything on. I thought it was automatic.
Yeah, well, sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I'm not exactly sure why it's. I know even on my computer, sometimes it's all there.
Canada.
Oh, he's another one of them crazy Canucks.
There we go. That's that Canadian technology.
We treat Canadians special now because who's in office, so it's a whole different thing now. I'm just saying. Matter of fact, we do a political show on Friday nights before this one, and we were discussing I guess he's not a prime minister yet, but who it looks like is going to be your new prime minister. And I was thinking him and Trump should be having some really good cocktails together somewhere down the line.
Yeah, Trump doesn't drink, so he'll have.
I know. He'll be having
some V8 cocktail, I guess.
This guy sounds a lot. When I heard him speaking, he sounds a lot like Trump. I was in a lot of ways too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think these guys are going to probably do better than the last guys. Thank God. But See, that's a whole open conversation for itself. We'll leave that alone. Jesse, no. Friday night, for 4 hours, we talk about all things news, some politics. It just, we just came out of an election cycle, so it's not as much politics as it now as it is news. Except for Jay's missing a poll, so he's out there looking for things like polls to show. I mean, after 18 months of polls, you got to kind of figure out what you want to do with that extra hour.
So, John, what are you writing now? So are you still in the world of Cthulhu?
I am. I finished up that trilogy that I wrote, the prequels to the story that was published in volume 35.
Yeah.
So I finished up that trilogy. I wrote a YA novel last year, but there's still like Cthulhu elements to it. So I've got that I'm looking to get published, and then this year I've got another idea for still Lovecraft inspired, but not in the same storyline as the trilogy.
I get it. So you still are your sons still? I mean, before you had your sons, they were like some of your, I don't know, what to call them beta readers, but you tell them the story. Yeah. They were like, except they're what? It's been going on for so long now. They're like in college now or something, or what?
My oldest one he's 18 now, first year of
university,
and I can't believe that. My younger one is 16, and he's playing tackle football, and so they're both two of my biggest fans, which is great. And yeah.
So is your son still at home with you, your oldest, or is he now live elsewhere?
No, they're still with me part-time, half-time with me, half-time with their mom.
Yeah.
He goes to university in Ottawa. So
just down the street then.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a bus ride instead of another city or province or anything.
Yeah. So how are your sales going?
Sales are good. I mean, they can always be better, right? I mean, I want to sell millions and be self-sufficient with my writing and get rid of my day job.
That's been a goal for a while. So if either of you, both either Martin or John, have you experienced that by having more books that when a person gets reads one, then all of a sudden, okay, what else has he written? And then all of a sudden you sell more of your backlist because of their new thing, or does that happen?
I do get that, particularly at when I'm doing a live show, and there's people that'll stop and chat with me at the table, and then I can be a little more personable with them, and I can be like, oh, if you like this, well, maybe you'll like this too, or I can give you a deal and you can have the whole trilogy, or oh, if you like this trilogy, there's also this trilogy, which is a humorous fantasy trilogy, and they're like, oh, I like that. So I find when I can talk to people one-on-one or in smaller groups, I can definitely make those sales.
Oh, good. What about you, Martin?
Yeah, the hand selling, you really have an advantage that you can sort of filter out quickly the people that you can say they're not interested.
Yeah.
And you can narrow in on the ones who might be. John's a little better at it. I am still naturally such an introvert that I have to really work to get through those people, but I'm learning. It just takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you find in the going conventions and that type of thing is, I know, Martin, you've done the thing at the workshop talking about like the sales at bookstores and stuff like that, doing the events and just the one-on-one stuff. So you find that that's better for like building relationships with fans?
It depends. If you're at a convention, they are already sort of in the big target audience.
Right.
So it's a better opportunity than at my local store where you just can't really tell. Yeah. But you still got to learn to target.
Yeah. And it's good when you're at a convention that is very genre specific. I went to one last year here in Canada called DreadCon, and it's all horror related. So it's already my target audience. Like, it's not just horror, science fiction, fantasy, romance, mystery. No, it's just the horror people. So it's my target audience
Target
already.
audience, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then now your goal for, I mean, what's each of your like goal for like writing new books and publishing new books in terms of timelines?
I have a goal because I've got a full-time job as well. I've got a goal to do 2 new books this year to get them written. I've got the one I did last year that I'm shopping around for an agent to get out to try to get into one of the bigger houses. And I've got 3 anthologies of previously published short stories that I'm putting together and going to self-publish.
Got it. What about you, Martin?
I am still trying to work on my police procedural on Mars to try to get some of those out yet this year. And my general rate, okay, let's set the stroke aside. My general rate is I can do pretty consistently 10,000 words a week if I make myself sit down and do it. It's actually, I dictate while driving. If I put in the right number of hours of driving every week, I can hit those numbers just fine. But this past year, I have been working from home nearly 100%, so I haven't been doing as much driving. And it's like, this is stupid. I shouldn't have to drive to talk. So part of the past year has been learning new habits that, gee, I can talk while I'm sitting still. And the answer is I can talk while I'm sitting still. What I can't do is I can't check my email and Facebook while I'm driving. So what I've learned is that the driving is making me focus. And so I'm having to learn to focus while I'm sitting in my nice, comfortable home. I'm way faster at home if I don't get distracted. I should be able to do, honestly, I should be able to do a novel in a month, but I don't. But when I'm
you're good. Well, I got a little friend of mine who has the same problem. He and I'm kind of bad about it myself. I do a lot of John will tell you, I do a lot of my business on the road. A lot of my talking's done while I'm driving because I got an hour and a half drive to work every day back and forth. So I use it a lot. But a good friend of mine found himself the same way. He did a lot of his reports, a lot of his work while he was driving. And he said when he was home, it always took him on. It was always a pain in the ass. And he realized the same thing you did, that he was being distracted. So he went out and bought this thing. He's got it in his office with him, and it emulates all the sounds of driving. So he says when he says when he gets into the work and he starts just listening with a little noise, he said he forgets and he thinks he's driving. He just his wife thinks it's funny, so every time I see her, she's got to tell me about it. She said, "Joe, he thinks he's driving when he's in the office. You know, he's going loony, right?" I said, "As long as he's getting his work done, that's all that freaking matters, man." But it does work for him. I mean, it emulates the sounds of driving, and it makes him, for some reason, it zones him back in. I don't know if it works for everybody, but it definitely works for him. And you know, but it's honestly, I'm way more productive when I'm on the road, or like when I visit them. As far as anything writing, I get way more done because my brain's not focused on all this other stuff that goes on in my life when I'm down here. It's just too me. It's like a whirlwind around my head half the time. So give it a try. Maybe it'll work, Martin. I don't know. It's always worth a try, though, man. Yeah, I can't write, so I better shut up. But anyway, John, how you been doing, man? Has you been okay? Like treat you okay?
Good.
Move on from that stuff.
I do find that when I'm doing the dictating, if I go for a walk, it works as well as if I go for a drive because I can't get distracted.
Yeah, I probably should have been a sci-fi. When I walk, I get into these space battles in my head. God knows I crash Star Wars and Star Trek and God knows what those series together into one thing while I'm walking. I wish I could put it onto paper. I never could, but it does help my brain to relax. You know, I don't know why it does, but it does help my brain to relax.
That's how Kevin Anderson does his writing. I mean, he does it on his hikes.
Yeah.
I got a good imagination. It's just for some reason I can't get it from here to there. It's just one of them things. It's like I was with a friend of mine, and that she's a really good artist, and I've been telling her a lot about John and them and some other stuff that's going on. And she just got to school, and she's made a pretty good living. She goes, "Well, I can teach anybody how to draw." I said, "No, you can't." And she said, "Draw me something." So I drew a crooked stick man. She looked. She said, "I can't teach you anything. Sorry." I mean, I can't draw a stick man that's not crooked and wavy and stuff. So it's it's just not a talent of mine. But at least I know it's not. I'm jealous of people who can really sit down and write and do really be good authors and be good illustrators. I know it takes way more patience than most people realizes, because I know rejections are not an easy thing. I've had to go through that myself when I'm putting in shows or looking for other media stuff. So nobody wants a rejection. No. It's a good thing I didn't drink or do drugs, because I'd be in trouble.
And one thing that's amazing too is just like both of you are authors here, and when we have illustrators on the show, you can have a storyline, and how you perceive it is just like it's a 180-degree vector opposite of what the illustrator does. Like I think in words, in terms of those concepts are word concepts, whereas an illustrator is an image concept. So how they can go and take a story that has different key points and things like, okay, that's very descriptive. An illustrator would take that, and they can't do the words, but they can take it and they can draw it, and you're like, my gosh, that's what it is. I can't do that. I'm like Joe. I flunk at a stick person, And
some people are good, some are not.
So like that one event that is always the second best event of the whole workshop week, the best being the gala itself, the award ceremony, is the big reveal where you find the art for your story. It's always the most emotional, because you see these two, when you have the 180 degrees each way, then you come together, and it's just like it really does complement each one, so that when you see the illustrator and the author come together, it's just like this fusion, and there's so much emotion that gets released when they see that, because everybody's so uptight about, could they even see something out of my story? Did they even get something to be able to illustrate? And the illustrator's like, oh my gosh, are they going to even recognize my art as being part of their story? And it's just the emotion on both sides is just they're so pent up that when it comes together, like I said, this emotion, that's just an explosion of emotion that's happened every year since I've been involved with this, going back.
It is very emotional. It's a lot of crying going on. It's amazing to me, though, is how well the authors find the illustrators, their artwork, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It always amazes me.
My artist was perfect for me. He did the perfect artwork.
He had such an awesome art illustration there. Oh my gosh, he was just like so good.
I still have it on my wall.
Yeah.
Echo picks them out. Who picks them out?
They're the winners. Maliva pretty much goes through and matches them based upon what they submitted, and she'll research them to see, okay, who's best to pair them up. And so she'll do that so that someone has the best chance of giving your story a good shake, so it's not so distant then, like, oh, all they do is fantasy art, and then now you give them hard science fiction. She won't do that.
Heather, I don't know. Maliva, I don't know who the hell Maliva is. She's some strange person that works there. We don't want to talk about her. I just not say we don't want to talk about her. I just said that. She's a little strange, is all I can tell you. I will leave it at
that.
She's sweet and
Let's
nice.
welcome our guests. We got John and Martin here talking about.
You had trouble.
Some of the best people are a little strange.
Yes, she's but we love her still. All the strange ones are worth loving. What's that cat? No, actually, she's a sweetie, but I just like to give her trouble.
Yeah. I give everybody trouble, and then he wonders why people give him so much grief.
No, only her.
No, that's unfair. That's
Emily. Just her and Emily. Emily's always funny.
And Sarah.
Well, I forgot about Sarah. But yeah, Sarah too. I like to get Sarah into trouble. She may be even more fun. They just got a lot of good people there. That's all. Well, if you win, you would know who we were talking about. How you like that? Yeah, go submit. I know you right, so go submit something. What do you mean? Oh, you pro'd out? Well, never mind. You can't submit nothing to that.
Yeah.
What? Hey, Phil, I'm sorry, I didn't know. This guy had been telling him about y'all for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. I guess he finally went and looked at the website. I know you write for a living, I know, but I thought you just wrote that stupid stuff for like TV shows and stuff. So, oh, come on, man. Writing weekly. No, we're not going there. We're going to leave that alone. If it's 2 authors in here, you're going to get me in trouble. Just go home and do something with yourself. He writes for, all right, I won't say. He writes for a Netflix series, and we'll leave it at that.
We had a winner last year who writes for Netflix. He writes the children's stuff.
Yes,
you could take a look at the rules and see, because the rules for what disqualifies you aren't always clear. That we've had people who thought they were disqualified, and Joni looked and said, "No, that does not count as a disqualifying sale." So,
but if you're writing for Netflix, you're probably making more than 8 cents a word. I would hope.
He makes a good living. We're not getting into what, but he makes a good living.
So I'm just curious now. So we talked about Martin, how he does his research stuff. How do you do your research stuff? Because you're more fantasy, John, but you anchor it in real history.
Yeah, it's historical horror. So I definitely have to get the historical details correct. Like for my original story, I had details about the Titanic, Jack the Ripper.
And that organization too. There was that one group of
the Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
They were a real club.
That was for real.
Yep. And I used the real ship captain when I was talking on the Titanic, and certain characters who were actually there. So I definitely like Google is my friend. I will do a lot of research that way, and I'll just put in what I want to know about and have it all pop up.
Yeah. Joe, have you ever heard of the Hellfire Club?
Actually, I have. Who was it? I think it was, who was it? One of my hosts actually introduced me to it about it. John DeSoto is his name. He was the guy who did he was one of the guys who worked on the Shroud of Turin. That's how I met him. And he was telling me about it. Yeah, they do a lot of Egyptian stuff, but they also do a lot of U.S. history, weird things. Anything that's not, I guess you would say, not normally known to public, he's into, I guess would be the best way to say it. He's into some dark stuff too. Plus, he's got collections of books that would make John jealous. He's got books 500 years old, 700 years old, 300 years old. He's got a fabulous collection. And he used to host with me. Problem with him is we both were good hosts, but we'll just say we argued a lot. Leave it at that. Maybe for some good shows, though.
John mentioned it because I think it was just totally fascinating. The people listening right now would be interested that this is a real organization that existed in England. I don't know if they still exist.
That I don't know.
But at the time, though, because it ties in with this research for this evil.
Rich young people that had more time on their hands and too much money, and
they probably came to Behemity Beyond. What the hell? Behemity Grove. That's who they probably became. The ones that go out to California every year and get naked in the Grove. All the rich and famous and powerful people.
Oh wow!
It's been around. That's what Behemity Grove, I think, is what it's called. It's been around for a long time. I always pick on people because they send me a list of members and names. I said, I don't want that on my computer. Don't send me that stuff. God knows if that's real or not. And I don't want nobody showing up to my house for no list, man. You just keep that stuff to yourself. There's some pretty wild names. And there has been some people who have proved that it does exist and it does happen, but I don't know now. There's been a lot of stuff going on in California last decade or so they may have decided to disband, move on, especially with the Weinstein, Epstein, and Diddy stuff. They may have decided to disband themselves.
Or
rebrand. That's probably the truth too. That probably is true. See, that would be a good horror, something based in real science. I mean, in real history.
Yeah.
In any of the groups, I've lost track. People always tell me about how these groups are going to take over. I'm like, why do you think that they're so powerful? I said, okay, let's be honest. I said the Bilderbergers hate the Skull and Bones. The Skull and Bones hate the Templars. The Masons hate them as well. I said, none of them really like each other, so they can't get along well enough to take over the world because they're going to have to kill each other off till there's only one left, and then they can take over the world. Oh, shit, that could be a story in itself. It is funny, though. It is funny. I mean, I get tons because, we do a lot of stuff on the network, a lot of different things, and sometimes we dabble in all kind of stuff like that. One of the best ones we ever did was working with Jim Mars on the Kennedy on Hellfire. The Kennedy story. The man was just such a fabulous researcher. He got information out of people. I don't know how the hell he got it out of. I asked him, I said, were you giving them drugs in their water or something? I was listening to him talk to Garrett's, one of Garrett's assistants, right after Kennedy was killed. The guy was still alive, and he was talking to this guy, was telling him all sorts of stuff. And I was like,
an article last week or last few days that LBJ had him killed. That just all surfaced again.
So yeah, that's good. And then and we'll see. Uncle Trump said he's going to release a lot of stuff. It's going to go. Madison, at this point, I don't think it matters if you like Trump or you don't. We're just, I'm a centrist, so I'm kind of in the middle most of the times. I like to call myself an equal opportunity hater, but at this point, he's president. So all we can do is hope that he is going to do some good stuff, and that we're all going to be happier, and the planet's going to be happier, and then we can, bitch in 2 years or 4 years. Remember, in 2 years, y'all can change Congress. Don't forget that, people. Y'all have the power. Really, you do have the. I think you Americans forget sometimes you do have the power. The Senate, the House is only 2 years. That's it. You can kick them some bitches out every 2 years if you feel like it. And the Senate every 6. Poof. Say adios, get out of here and go do something else. So pay attention to what's going on in your country and make the right decision. That's all I can tell y'all. And I'm not going to tell you who I voted for. I voted for John. Both Johns. How's that? Not confuse y'all even more. Emily called me, said I better vote for John or I was going to be in trouble. So if Emily tells me I do it, she's scary, man. That's a scary girl. Who wrote me that? Who knows? Anyway, she's a sweetheart. She is. Actually, to be honest, before I let y'all get back to talk, be honest when you watch him. Emily's just, most of the time I see her, she is just nonstop. Every now and then I'll grab you. You want a glass of wine? You want to have a cup of coffee? You want to talk for a minute? It's like, okay, bye. She's gone again. Every night before like Wednesday, you can catch her for a little while, but after that, it's over with. You're not going to see her.
She produces the gala.
Yeah, she just stays moving. I catch her every once in a while because we're usually at the bar at midnight, when they're coming back from working. But other than that, who is she, Denise? It's his wife. The guy up here on the right corner, it's his wife, John Goodwin. It's Emily Goodwin. She the boss, man.
Yep.
She's the boss. And then Joni, the other boss. And then, of course, we got Maliva in there, too. So it's just crazy, man. I don't know how he does it, all the women around him. I'd have to go jump off a bridge somewhere and just commit suicide. Be done with it. I asked Jason one time, Jason, you okay, man? How can you take all these pheromones around you? But says, no, they're sweetie pies. I just like to pick on them. Yeah. I'll tell you, I'll be honest. If I don't pick on you, it means I don't like you. Yes. A friend of mine asked me that one time. He said, you pick on me a lot. I said, because I like you a lot. He's like, oh, wait, what do you mean you like me a lot? Not like that, you ass. So where you head? What you got planned for the year, John? I know we just getting into the new year. Everything's round up and ready.
Well, the beginning of the year, every year I sit down and I figure out what I'm going to be working on for the rest of the year. So I've got 2 books that I'm working on. One is going to be another historical horror, but it's a little bit further back than what I wrote previously. This one's going to be in the Roanoke colony. So I'm tying all that into Lovecraft and the Elder Gods and monsters and
that should be interesting.
Stuff. Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of fun research on that one.
So the other day I was with some friends of mine and we were talking about a lot of this stuff. And one of my friends is a big Lovecraft fan. He's a huge fan, and so we had the grandkids with us. They're all Z-Geners, right? And they're like, who? Hey, not a one of them. I'm not kidding. There's like 12 of them with us. Not a one of them knew who he was. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? And they're like, no. He said, well, you never talk about it. I said, well, I'm not as big a fan as some of the other people I know are, but I said, he's a pretty famous individual. I said, maybe you should go look it up online. I said, because I know some of these kids are in fantasy and sci-fi and quite a few of the genres that you would have found him in. And it was weird to see. I think some of them actually knew the individual, They just didn't know the individual as the writer of what they were reading.
Yeah.
Because when I mentioned some stories or some other stuff, and when Bobby got to talk, because he knows every damn thing he wrote, they started identifying with some of the story or some of the characters more so than even the stories. So it's kind of like, well, then how you don't know who wrote it? Oh, well, I don't always care. I'm like, wow, okay. Yeah, but you know what? Some of my millennial friends are like that. You ask them an author or something, they're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They'll know the producer of a movie, mind you, now, but they won't know who wrote it. Figure that one out. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
what? Oh, yeah, oh, and what's his name? Abrams, oh my God, because he makes these exploding things, these movies where everything explodes. Everybody seems to know JJ, but he's not the
Yeah.
author. He's not the guy who put the story. He's the guy that effed the story up, actually. So I'm just kind of like, what are we going to do here, man? I mean, come on, bro.
I'll be back in 1 minute.
My alarm system going off, y'all. Obviously, somebody has come to the studio to say hi. Oh, man. No. So I know Martin said he's going to be taking it easy. Having a harem is not an easy thing, Martin. I understand that. When you've got 25, 26 wives, it's tough.
I only have 3, and they don't count because they're felines.
They don't count. That's a good friend of mine's guy. He said he just recently, him and his wife of like 30 years split up, and he said, "Well, I got 4 bitches that live with me now." I said, "Them 4 dogs do not count as wives." he's got 4 dogs and 3 cats, and he's got 2 Himalayans, which are monsters. Ooh. And then he's got 1 Maine Coon, which is bigger than the Himalayans. And the Himalayans are all 20, 24 pounds. And, they're all show cats. I'm like, dude, it's like a fur ball when you go into his house. These cats have so much hair on them. It's unbelievable. And I'll go in his house someday, and all the dogs will be laid around. Cats will be laid over the top of the dogs, and he'll be there with his pad writing. I'm like, is this how you're going to be an author, my friend? I don't know what to think about it. I think he's just still a little depressed. It's kind of funny. But he's a big animal fan. He really likes it. But he's always talking about his 4 bitches sleeping when he went to bed at night. I just can't. I can't take it. We were some club, and he's, oh, don't worry, baby. I got 4 bitches that sleep with me every night. I had to walk off. I said, I'm not saying that, Joe. Don't say anything, Joe. Just leave, Joe. Go get a drink, Joe. Go get a Coke, man, and move on. Oh man, Martin, you're gonna where you stay? What part of the country you in?
I'm in Michigan.
Oh man, you up there in the warm part of the country? Holy crap!
We've been getting the Arctic this year.
I hear it's been cold up there. I got friends up there. They tell me it's been cold up there, and I cursed all of them yesterday when I found out we're gonna get 4 to 6 inches of snow on Tuesday. I live on the Gulf. I mean, literally, if you look out my back door, you see the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm like, snow? I'm like, people, snow, really? I mean, you can't get them further south than this. Oh, like, geez. And then I was talking to my son, a friend of mine in New Orleans yesterday, and he's also saying, dude, it's just going to snow here. Now, I lived in New Orleans most of my life. It only snowed once every 10, 11 years, and I didn't consider it real snow because I've been in real snow. I mean, it did snow like 2 inches and, caused a bunch of accidents because nobody understands that you got to stop before you get to the stop sign, not when you get to the stop sign. Things like that. And there is nothing that like salt or anything like that down here. And even though we got a big Gulf of Mexico full of salt, we just, we're too ignorant to figure that out. So basically what goes on, we just close everything down for 3 or 4 days and say, stay home, which is something up north they can't do because they still got to make a living. But we're just like, oh, well, nope. Everybody gets a free vacation. We get an extra week Christmas vacation. The first year I moved in this house, we had 12-inch icicles hanging off of it. It was like, where the hell am I at? Thought I was in a Twilight Zone movie or one of y'all's guys' stories or something went seriously wrong here. I asked both of y'all this question. When y'all are writing, do y'all ever consider like the environmental factors, whether it's weather or something along those lines? I know for you have to, Mark, because sometimes you're talking about Mars. So there's also things you have to include in the Mars, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it. But I mean, I never really think about that until I read a book or I'm listening to a book and somebody's describing the weather of the day, which in a lot of cases does seem to add to the story. What do y'all think? I mean, it's got to be different for different people, but I kind of feel that knowing the guy standing in a puddle, or it's lightning outside, or it's sunny or bright, kind of makes a difference.
It
So what do
definitely
y'all
adds
think?
to the
Y'all are
atmosphere.
authors.
Sure.
I'm just a rookie. That's
Yeah,
what I am.
the weather that they're in definitely adds to the atmosphere and to the ability for the reader to get a feeling for what it is. Like, oh, if it's cold or rainy or foggy, or everybody's experienced this, so it's one way to drag the reader further into the story for me. A lot of the time, the weather for the day will be dependent on what I want to have happen for the character. So if I need him to be isolated, well, maybe there was a blizzard last night. Or if I need it to be wet and gloomy and depressing, then there's a rainstorm.
How does the weather tie in with you, Martin? Because you do off-world spaceship science fiction.
Well, the weather, the environment, it's all setting. And contest judge Dean Wesley Smith likes to teach, and he's not the only one, likes to teach that setting is character. And what he means by that is, like, okay, let's say that what your setting is a rainy street in London, or some city in England, maybe closer to the country than London. Rainy street, pouring down rain, and you've got a woman sitting there huddled under an awning with her arms crossed, scowling, looking at her watch, looking at the rain. And then you've got the exact same scene, but the woman in this scene is dancing in that rain. Because the weather is how the characters react to it. That the one woman is trying to think, maybe I should just go back in the bar because I don't want to walk home in this mess. And she's miserable and she's sour. And this has ruined her day. And the other woman, she's just naturally overjoyed by this rain that they've needed forever. So part of setting is how the characters react to it. Nobody wants to read a weather report. They want to read what the weather does to the characters, including their reactions.
Then how's that work though in your space stuff? How do you tie that in with your hard sci-fi, or does it factor in?
It has a factor. Different people will respond to the different gravity levels differently. Different people will deal with the pressure situation. I won't say I'm famous for this, but among a small circle, I am famous for airlock scenes. My absolute favorite scene is that airlock opens and you've got safety behind you and you've got the unknown in front of you. And how does that particular character respond to that airlock opening? You get the ones who really don't want to be here, who are clinging to every last handhold. You've got the ones who are, this is all new, I get out to explore this. And then you've got the old experienced hands who hit the jets and fly through that because they want to get to the other side, because that's the interesting thing. So for me, the airlock scenes are that rainy street. The airlock is how this character approaches the unknown.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's not a thing. It's just something that gives you a foil for or not a foil, but gives you something that the other character will react to create some either sympathy or aversion or something about the character that you can then you yourself have some either likeness, fondness, hate, disinterest, whatever for.
In my my police procedural on Mars, one of the younger characters on the team grew up on Mars and has been inside essentially his whole life. And he has an absolute irrational fear of dust storms. So the very first episode, I had to stick the whole team out into a dust storm.
Of course.
And right next to him is a guy who helped build the city. He has been living and working on Mars for 30 years. And next to them both is a woman who is a former military officer and a expedition leader and so on. And so all of these different characters respond to this differently. in the exact same thing. And I'm just jumping from point of view to point of view so that the reader's getting to see how each of them is responding to the exact same environment very differently, because it's not immediately obvious that Kyle, the young guy, he's just about ready to jump. He's so paranoid about this, and he's trying to look cool because he's a 19-year-old guy. What 19-year-old guy wants to show how terrified he is? And so we get to see how Kyle looks to everybody else and how he thinks he looks to them and how he looks to the reader.
I get it. Yeah, I was just curious on that because that's interesting. What would you say between both of you? What's the main difference in writing? Because you're both speculative, between hard science fiction and your historical fiction horror fantasy stuff that you do. What would be the main difference between those two?
Different kind of research for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
I think that's a big part of it. Is we both have to research, but we both have to also make up things that are missing.
Right.
Yeah. Fill in the blanks. Yeah. My first book in the trilogy took place in India in 1878. And because there's not a lot of documented stuff in that part of India in that time, I was able to take what I could find, but then I was able to fill in a lot of the blanks myself and make it believable, but I could just fill it in.
And that's what Tim Powers does too with his stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Second book was a little different because it was 1888 in London, England, and there's a lot of documentation there. So I wasn't, I had to work around the actual facts.
Those little nuisances.
I know. Like, yeah. There's, in the first book, I have an elevator in Bombay, and I didn't realize that elevators weren't introduced until later. So I had to fiddle with it a bit and make it not an electrical elevator. It was, oh my gosh, I can't even remember. I wrote this book 4 years ago now.
It's like Typewriter in the Sky, where the pulp writer, he has a Steinway piano before Steinway existed. That goes back to playing different things where he gets the time. It didn't exist back then. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I haven't gotten any hate mail from people saying I messed stuff up, so I guess I did okay.
Yeah. Well, Larry Nevin definitely got some hate mail, like not getting his, different parts of the science right. I said that wasn't right. And he actually made a change to it when he came out with his next edition on Ringworld. What were you going to say, Martin?
I was just going to mention, though, that you can't please everybody. There's unless you are an expert, there's a bigger expert out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can only get good enough.
Yep.
So Joe, you're muted.
I was going to say I learned a long time ago. I don't really do this stuff. As long as I'm happy with it, it doesn't really make me unhappy if somebody criticizes or likes it. Or criticism's never been a thing that's really fazed me much. I've been really lucky in that point, because I got friends and people who work in different fields that get devastated, and I can understand why. It's like somebody was telling me one day. He said, "Joe, you're the most brilliant ufologist I've ever talked to, but when it comes to politics, you're the biggest blank moron I've ever heard." I said, "Well, that's your view." And, and it's like, "You're not, man." I said, "Not really. That's your political view. It's how you feel." I said, "But think about this." I said, if I'm that good at gathering research in a field that's that hard, why do you think my politics would be that untaken care of? Why do you think I wouldn't use the same, go after the same thing?" He's like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, you tell me how great my research is." I said, "Why wouldn't I use that same enthusiasm for politics?" And he's like, "I don't want to think about that." Anymore. I was like, "But you can't." And I had one guy tell me, he said, "I'm just going to step on your neck." Well, so here's my address. Fly your ass on down here. And it's just, I learned you can't let people, even if it does bother you, can't let people know because they'll use it to beat up on you anyhow. So
Yeah.
and most stuff just rolls off of me. It drives my friends crazy. We'll be places like, you don't even care. I'm like, I have to, and to be totally honest, I have to value someone's opinion for it to even make a difference to me. And honestly, the average person would be like, well, you're a nice person and all, but so what? It's what is it? It's arrogance. I am a little bit arrogant. I won't deny that, but that's not really what that is. That's self-preservation is what that is. But I know we got to get out of here soon. Martin, you got anything you want to tell anybody before we leave out of here? Or are we?
If you're looking for my latest work, besides a couple of stories in Analog last year, John, you mentioned General Thompson, was it, from was our keynote speaker at Writers of the Future a few years back?
Yeah.
A story that he helped is in Tales of the United States Space Force that came out from Bain last year. That while I had that opportunity to talk to him there, it's like, I need to do this in my story. Will that work? And he said, yes, and here's how. So he helped me get that story online. And that is probably one of the funnest things I wrote last year.
Oh, good.
Very cool.
Get out there and get it, people. Go take a read. It's always good to be reading something new. And I know there's a lot, and I know this particular show, and I know a lot of my fans are near now sci-fi fans. So especially if they listen to my other show, they definitely are. And so they'll appreciate anything near now. And then see Lee and them on here. Lee and them are big into horror. So they're gonna anytime they hear, like on the News on the Flip Side show, there's two of our hosts that are really big and hard. They just go ape on it. And then Sean Haslett kind of likes it himself. He'll get into the middle of it because we do have other hosts and winners.
Yeah, and then John Haas. What about you?
Well, let's see. I finished up the trilogy last year, so that is available through Wordfire Press. Also available through Amazon. By all means, come and take a look for me. Just Google my name and you can find my stuff. There is another John Haas who's the writer right there. That's not me. He's the one who's doing religious stuff. That's not me. I'm doing the horror. So don't get us confused.
You might have to get a pen name,
John
man.
Haas, not John P. Haas, and it's just both John Haas.
Yeah. And like here I am many years later, and I should have used my middle initial in there as well, but I didn't. So
you can always make a name or a pseudonym or something. You can do something kind of weird.
Yeah. I'm just aiming to be the more popular John Haas.
That works too.
There you go. I'm for that.
It's always about for the first one that comes up on a list anyhow, the first 4 or 5.
That's right.
It's always about them. But I know we got to get out of here because we just went past the top of the hour. So I want to thank Martin. I want to thank you for being here. John, I want to thank you for being here. Hopefully I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you for having me.
I know the other John's going to be traveling all over the world. We're not going to say that online because we don't want y'all to know where he's at because y'all are weird people. And y'all might go bother the man or something. He went to Germany and these women were lining up and Emily's calling John, I'm going to hurt you, I'm like, why? And there's like women all over John. I'm like, I got nothing to do with this. And so anyway, I'm just saying, y'all got to be careful. So we keep John, scheduled private now. We can't be getting in no more trouble. The boss lady threatened him. We can't have that. And plus I sent her a sword. So I don't want to get killed by my own sword. That's not a good thing. We don't want to go there. We don't have to. No, but he will be out traveling and he's got a lot of good stuff coming up. All the shows are doing well. So y'all be sure to check him out. Writers of Future aired a couple of hours ago. And then of course, followed by The Professional, followed by this. The chat will be here in an hour with the crazy guys. And God only knows what we're going to be chatting about tonight. It's just scary to even think about it sometimes. And there's no language barrier on that show, which makes it even more dangerous. We got a bunch of New Yorkers and people from Pennsylvania in there. So I'm just kidding. They're no crazier than I am. But anyway, on that note, we got to get out of here. So I want to thank everyone for listening to the authors Quill and United Public Radio. I hope you all have a good evening. Of course, if you got any moans, glitches, or complaints, please write to Michelle DeRoche, courtesy of Michelle DeRoche. She's the big boss, and she handles all of that lovely stuff. And she likes when y'all talk about John. Good night, everybody.